What if I told you that roughly 1 in 4 people taking personal loans are defaulting? Imagine issuing out loans as a lending firm only to end up not being paid by every single loan taker each day. And that's the reality in most of the countries, especially Kenya. Most of the banks, fintech lenders, and credit unions are experiencing the same. And it's not about the numbers. Lending institutions are highly likely to be edged out of the business in 2026. And that's how serious this problem has become. I carried out a loan default risk analysis for Horizon Financial Group with only one goal: to identify the risk factors that predict loan defaults. I did not jump directly into building the project first. And these are the questions that are right, which I asked myself, and concerning the project to solve the problem in hand. What is the overall default rate and how does it break down by the credit score ranges given? Is there a relationship between borrowers' debt to income or DTI ratio and the likelihood of defaulting? Which loan purposes have the highest default rates? And does the average loan amount differ significantly between the defaulted and non-defaulted loans? How does employment status and years employed affect default risk? We are not just reducing loan default risk, we are ensuring affordable loans are given to millions of people, or thousands of people. And this is not just about prediction, this is financial freedom for everyone. First, I'm going to answer important analysis questions, show you the pattern I found, and how that helped in my decision making. Let's get started. So I analyzed Horizon Financial Group's data that it had issued 600 personal loans across the year 2024 and 2025. I will be able to take you through the workflow of the same and be sure that we'll skip the technical part of it. And in about giving the brief workflow of it, I imported and explored the I imported the datasets into pandas and performed exploratory data analysis to explore data itself. And the datasets given were borrower profile CSV, of which I had to describe the data, check if the data types were correct. Of course, they were. I also imported the loan application CSV dataset, checked about the structure of the dataset in order to ascertain if there was necessary to clean the data. I employed the shape of the loan application dataset, trying to find information. I went ahead and described the loan application dataset, checking the data types, and that's all about exploratory data analysis. Just having a general look about your data. I finally joined the two datasets on a common ID, that is column ID, borrower ID. I performed segment analysis and established credit score buckets to divide the loan category into different category called credit score buckets. I ascertained and established debt to income buckets to calculate debt to income if not already in the data given. I looked at the employment status in relation to default rate, the loan purpose as well in relation to default rate, and then came about with the summary of the same. That is credit score, debt to income, employment, and loan purpose uh, analysis in relation to the default rate of each. I also went ahead and performed a correlation analysis where I was exploring the relationship between default rate and different variables. I had to prepare data to encode it into default binary as 1 and no default binary as 0. Between correlation numeric variables in correlation analysis, I also went ahead to use Pearson correlation matrix. This was to establish which variable had the strongest relationship concerning default. And here I was looking at the credit score, debt to income, the annual income, the loan amount, the interest rates, all comparing to in comparison to the default rate. I went ahead to visualize the findings all the same. And one of the visualizations that I came out with includes the credit score bucket, default rate, bar chart. And from our findings, as we look at the visual above the bar chart, it shows that most people falling in between the credit score bucket 300 to 599 showed the highest default rate of above 45, above 40 or 45. Why the least for the people in the credit score bucket in the range 750 and above recorded the lowest default rate, meaning continue giving loans to people in the credit score bucket, in the lowest credit score bucket, will pose a threat to the company because it would increase the rate as compared to the high credit score bucket, which is 750 and above. I also went ahead and captured picture of the scatter plot of default binary in relation to debt to income. And people and the scatter plot shows people with the highest default debt to income are less likely to default compared to people with the lowest debt to income ratio. And we can trace this from the outliers above 120 debt to income. The last visualization that we had, it depicted loan purpose against number of loans. Number of loans defaulted. And from our observation, most people who took loans for the purposes of wedding are the people that defaulted post the highest default rate according to the data. And they were followed closely by the people who took loan for home improvement, uh, then those who took loan took the auto loan, then business loan, and then medical expenses, and the list being moving loan purpose. And concerning the overall default rate, I found out that the overall default rate across all loan application is 24.29, which is above the target of the company that were aiming to reduce the default rate by less than by 12% or less. So this is equally twice the uh, twice the target, which doesn't align with the organization's objective. And I look at the credit score, the higher risk segment, credit score range of 300 to 599 had the highest default rate, that is 49.14%. The lower risk segment uh, that significantly decreased with higher credit scores, that is 600 to 649, that is 29.03%. Then 650 to 699, 28%. 700, 749, 16.29%. And the uh, least default rate segment credit score was above 750 of 11.69%. And this is particularly what the organization were basically looking to achieve. And what I recommend about this is to implement a minimum credit score threshold of 700. And on the higher note, it would be 750 plus. Loans to borrowers with credit score below 700 should be subject to stricter scrutiny or additional qualifying criteria, given the notable increase in default rates below this threshold. On debt to income, the relationship there is a clear relationship between debt to income and default likelihood, and borrowers with debt to income of 45% and above exhibit a significantly higher default rate of 39.58% compared to lower debt to income ranges, that is 0 to 15% at 21.05%, 16 to 25% at 24.81%. And my recommendation was that to set a maximum debt to income threshold of 45%, applicants with debt to income ratio exceeding 45% should generally be declined, or at least, or at minimum, require extensive additional risk mitigation factors. And last but not least, the loan purpose. The highest risk purposes to default, these are loans for wedding, which took 32.1%, followed closely by home improvement, that is 28.57%, and auto loan, 27.12%, showing the highest, uh, they show the highest default rates. The average loan amounts, that is defaulted versus non-defaulted. For some high-risk purposes, the average loan default for defaulted loan is notably higher than for non-defaulted loans. That is debt consolidation, uh, for non-default, we have education and medical expenses. But however, for others, the pattern is reversed. For example, the auto loan, and for defaulted versus non-defaulted respectively. This on the higher note suggested that higher loan amounts for specific purposes uh, may be a contributing factor to default. I recommended to apply stricter underwriting standards for higher interest rates for loans purposed for wedding, home improvement, education, debt consolidation, and medical expenses, especially when the loan amount is higher than the average for that purpose. And just to conclude about this analysis, so when the financial health gets worse, especially when the credit scores drop below 600, people in the lending pool start defaulting significantly their loans. And this shows that the credit worthiness is a huge predictor, and more caution is needed in approving those loan applications, especially when these scores are hitting the low ranges. Thank you, and for any inquiries about the project, the suggestions or contributions, or if you could need a collaboration concerning a similar project, especially for the mid-sized lending institutions like banks, fintech lenders, and credit unions, feel free to send me a message directly at Don Roam on all my social media platforms. Thank you, and see you on the next one.